You make those cases and you start to wonder, what is the holdback here? Why aren't we discussing this more? Why aren't we seeing more regenerative practices? Is this a political thing? Is that where the issue kind of goes to? What is the holdup to see more regenerative farming out there in the world?
Yeah. We don't have a food culture in the US.
Yeah.
I mean, if you travel to Europe, every place you go, you will find, a food culture, a really like from antiquity, a food culture. And every time I go to Europe just for fun, I always ask my hosts, um, I always say, all right, when you think of American food, what do you think? And I've never had it miss. You know what they all say? As soon as you think American food, what's the first thing they say? They say McDonald's.
I
That's what
was just gonna say
yeah,
that.
that's worldwide. And
Right.
my mentor Alan Nation had a wonderful take on this. He was world traveled and well read, and he said, the difference between American and European food culture is royalty. In Europe, they never ask you, "Did you get enough?" They ask you, "How did it taste?"
Mm,
And it was a mark of royalty. It was a mark of that you were not a peasant, that you did not eat a lot when you ate because you knew you were going to get another meal.
mm,
America, when the settlers came, and even a Native American society, this is very well. I mean, I remember I listened to a park ranger who was on a Native American sacred site out in Nebraska, and he said that the Native American, when they could get all the bison, when hunting was good and they could get all they could eat, they would eat as much as 10 pounds in a day and just gorge themselves because the next meal was unsure. They didn't know if they
right.
could find bison the next day. And if you read Native American literature, you know that it was very hit and miss. I mean, they did preserve food, but it was hit and miss. It's
Hmm.
feasting for a week, and then we have 2 weeks where we're just kind of not eating much.
Hmm.
And so in America, it was always, hey, if you could get it, eat it, eat and eat all you can because you didn't know if there was another meal coming. And so here in America, it was never a thing about taste. It was about satiation and enough. And so the idea of eating um, as a cultural phenomenon. I mean, you go to Spain, and I mean, a 2 hour meal that's culturally normal. And
Hmm.
we from the U.S., when I go there, I'm uncomfortable. About an hour in, I'm sitting there. Well, are we going to go do something? Are we gonna, excuse me. Are we gonna, what's next on the agenda? I'm looking at my watch. I'm looking at the schedule. They're completely couldn't be happier. Hey, we're eating. In America, we view food as just a pit stop, a
Right.
pit stop between everything that's important in life. And so we have never developed a food culture like that. And I think that then that then has made us an expediency, a culinary expediency culture, in which TV dinners, squeezable Velveeta cheese,
Mm.
Lunchables, Hot Pockets, all of these things have huge desirability because it's convenience and I can eat it on the run. And what is it, like 40% of American food is consumed in automobiles? I mean, the statistics are just off the charts. 77% of our food is ultra processed, which by definition, you can't make in your kitchen.
Hmm.
So, so, um, what's the problem? The problem is that we as a culture have not developed an awe and an appreciation for food as ultimate provenance, as ultimate, um, as becoming flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. We
Yes.
we just haven't developed that kind of culture.
Absolutely. No, there's this strange relationship with food and a very detached mentality. That is, it is simply a sort of fuel that you quickly, abide by, go by the cheapest one that many people, many Americans really embrace. And I do think it comes from not even knowing about the food source or not wanting to know about where your food comes from. And like you say, getting your hands in the dirt and actually getting your own food, hunting sometimes, doing these things. Do
Yes.
you feel we need to bring that possibly back to a younger generation? Because I don't see many of the baby boomers now, just suddenly gardening in the cities or something like that. It's just, it's
Yeah.
not as feasible. But how about we start with children? How is that where you see
Oh,
things changing in this culture?
oh, you're speaking my language. Yes, yes, man, that is my heart language. I am such a huge believer of children's gardens, whether it's at your home or at a school or at a daycare center, whatever. And yes, that is a movement that is gaining steam. Uh,
Hmm.
and some of the most interesting places that I've visited, been, done seminars, have been at places that do these kinds of things. One of the most interesting ones was I was in California once, and there was a whole school district there that had incorporated a 3 acre farm into the academic curriculum, and the kids went out to the farm like a half a day every week they were out at this farm, and I happened to be there, the two ladies that were running the farm. So this was a middle school program, and so they incorporated the farm, the food and the farm into their biology, their math, their science, history, all this stuff. And so the two farmer ladies there that were running a farm, they'd made a large a worm box. It was about 3 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and about 8 feet long, like a great big coffin, for a big fat guy. And and it was a worm box. And so the kids were learning about worms and all this stuff. And so then the kids had an assignment. They gave them an assignment. They said, "All right, when you come next week, bring some food items." So the next week the kids came and they brought Twizzlers and Cheerios and squeezable Velveeta cheese and things like that. And the two farm ladies, they put in, an apple and a T-bone steak and, a piece of unprocessed cheese.
Hmm.
The next week, of course, the kids come, they go charging up to they're all prepped and ready to go. They open up the door and they pull out, the Twizzlers and the candy bars and the uh, stuff that they'd put in, and gummy bears. And the teacher, and they look over here, and well, there's no orange, there's no apple, there's no T-bone steak, there's no cheese. Where did it go? And the obvious question the teachers then asked was, well, why do you want to eat something even worms won't eat? And it was a graphic, it was really a
Yeah.
graphic, powerful expression to the kids. And so I think that's one thing. The other thing that I think that's valuable for kids in gardens is to realize that life is not a video game. Um, you know,
Yes.
the screen time, the video game time that kids play, they live in this fantasy virtual world and feel like, oh man, I control the world with my thumbs. I can just um, make this and unmake it. And when you get out in the garden and the tomato wilts because it's got fusarium wilt, the tomato game doesn't give you a new tomato plant, and you learn to deal with death and with things that are beyond my control. And there's things going on out in the world that I can't just push a button and control. And I think that's a powerful spiritual and emotional aspect of gardening with kids.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The idea of gardening and having a child it's also so healthy, right? They show through the hygiene hypothesis,
Sure.
getting your hands in the dirt, the microbes, your immune system is robust suddenly from that. You're active, you're outdoors in nature, right? There's so many great things. Kids that do that more have less allergies. have less
Yes.
chronic disease. They're usually not, obese because they're always moving and everything. So there's
Yep.
so many things there that point to the beneficial health sides as well as the relationship to food that you will carry for the rest of your life.